This is why I like to own two cars. I'm spoiled, I admit it. First world problems, but when one car's down, you can work on the other one or you can drive the other one. It's kind of nice. I'm spoiled, I must admit. So we're going to do a little project on my 53 Chrysler Windsor today. Today I want to talk about digital troubleshooting tools. These are both digital multimeters. I must just say that I'll admit that I'm not sponsored by anyone other than my wife. She supports what I do. I don't care about product brand. I'm not going to refer or recommend a certain product because nobody pays me to do that. I just happen to have bought these. I'm not even going to tell you this. This one is an amp probe. I guess I will tell you. Digital multimeter. I like it. Works well. And this is a Unit T I got on... I got it on Amazon, I think, or maybe eBay. Anyways, what's unique about this one is it has a clamp at the top. And what it allows me to do is clamp around a wire and measure amp flow through the wire. It works well. So there's a magnet in here, I think, and there's inductive current that flows through it. You can measure the current. So this is a great tool for troubleshooting. You're looking for maybe drain on your battery or maybe a leaking circuit that's got amp flow going through it. Maybe after you turn the key off on your car, your battery's going dead. This is going to do it. The other thing I really like about this setup is this one allows me to measure my generator output. When I fire up my car, I can look at how much output is coming out, how many amps are coming out of my generator. And this allows me to monitor the battery. So let's just quickly do a little video on monitoring battery voltage and the generator output. And these aren't expensive. You can pick these up and you can do a lot of your own work at home. It's not hard. Let's try that. I've got my multimeter hooked up to DC voltage, and as you can see, I'm getting 6.3 volts off my 6-volt battery. I'm happy with that. That's really good. And I'm going to take my clamp meter there, and I'm going to put it around my generator wire. I'm going to put it around the armature wire down there, which is the, I believe it's the yellow one. And I'm going to set it up here, and I'm going to crank over my engine. And I'll set the camera up so you can watch and see what happens here with the voltage on my battery. It's going to drop. It's going to go down. It's going to drop well below 6 volts, I'm sure, for a second. Then it's going to start charging again, and then we're going to measure the ammeter, see what it's putting out from the... So we're going to use an ammeter to measure the output from the generator. All right, the car is stone cold. It's been sitting in the garage for a couple of weeks and not been driven. So I'm going to go crank it over. If it takes a little while to start, that's actually a good thing. We're going to watch that battery voltage drop. I'll leave the camera going here while I crank it over. So it's slowly taking a charge back right now, slowly. Let's get the ammeter hooked up and see what it does. Alright, I just turned on my headlights, as well as 2 blower motors. There's going to be a lot of amp draw here. I'm currently sitting at my generators putting out 21 amps at idle. Let's rev it up and see if we can get that up. You want to see that go to 40. So it's able to put out 36 amps there. I'm going to turn my high beams on. See if I can get even more draw out of there. Sitting at idle. High beam was on. $40 amps. That's decent. That generator is doing its job very well. And my voltage on my battery, it's going to be down a bit because it's pulling a lot out of there right now. I'm happy with that. You can see I can quickly diagnose my generator output. Even at idle, it's putting out 14 amps. I'm kind of impressed. I didn't expect it. That's That's more than I thought it would at idle. The battery voltage, I suspect it's going to continue to drop a little bit there because I'm at idle. See what it does. It might start to go backwards here and lose some voltage because I'm basically at idle and I've got my headlights on high beam. Yeah, there you go. See, it's draining a little bit from the battery. And I've got 2 blower motors on. They're cranking the amps out of that battery. The generator's just not keeping up at idle. That's normal. The generator does not make good power until it revs up. And that is part of the reason, a big reason, why they went to alternators. Alternator makes more amps at idle. You know, if you've heard it, but in the background, my carbon monoxide detector is going off. It's reading, what's it showing? 92 parts per million of carbon monoxide. Because I'm in the garage and my car's running. I've got both garage doors open, but it still cranks out quite a bit of carbon monoxide. Okay, so your battery, we'll talk about this in another video, 2.2 volts per cell. 2.2 times 3 cells, 1, 2, 3 cells, that's 6.6 volts. A fully charged battery is going to read 6.6 volts when it's sitting there. That would be a fully charged battery. As a battery ages, it deteriorates a little bit. You're not going to see 6.6 volts maybe on an older battery. The hydrometer, we talked about in another video, will show you the condition of your battery even at full charge. You can see that voltage continues to drop at idle. 5.96 now. See how long it takes to charge it back up here. I'm going to rev it up again. The generator is doing its job. Here's the Unity tool I recommend. It's also a multimeter, so you don't need both. I happen to own 2 pieces here, the digital multimeter and this clamp style multimeter. This does everything. I can plug 2 wires in the bottom here and I can measure voltage, or I can measure amps, resistance, whatever I want with it. Works well. This model is a UT210D. It says it does up to 600 volts DC current. I tried it on my starter. See, it says 600 volts. I tried it on my starter, but I can't seem to start. I'd like to know how many amps go through my battery cable when the starter's cranking over, but for some reason it can't seem to record that. Anyways, recommend it. There you go. A couple tools to help you troubleshoot your charging system, your 6-volt system with a generator and a voltage regulator. Hope you guys kind of go outside of your comfort zone, buy a couple tools, and play around and try it. Figure it out. It's not that difficult. That's giving you all the clues as to what's going on with your electrical system there. Alright, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is using a vacuum gauge to set your air-fuel mixture screw, your idle air-fuel mixture screw. Now, in my particular car, there's a pipe plug on the intake manifold, and it's a solid plug that is sealed, but I happen to have an old plug. Looks like this, and has a hole drilled through it. So it's a pipe plug. I'm going to thread this into the hole, and I'm going to insert this little vacuum gauge hose into it. It's tapered fitting on the end of the hose there. That'll go in there like that. I'm going to read engine vacuum while it's running, and I'm going to adjust my air-fuel mixture screw. So I'm going to show you how that works. This is a great tool for diagnosing your engine and learning about maybe potential leaks in the intake manifold or the valve timing or valve seats. It's going to show you cool stuff. Highly recommended. This one's a Multivac, it's called. It's made by Multivac, and they're not expensive. It works real well. So I'm going to hook this up to the intake manifold. Here's the carburetor and the air filter on the intake side of my engine here. This is a 1953 265 engine. See that pipe plug there? It's right at the base of the intake manifold there, below the carburetor. I took a wrench to it and I unbolted it. It's just a solid pipe plug. Now I'm going to take that plug, set it aside, and then I have this one with a hole in it. I'm going to thread that back into that hole and hook up my vacuum gauge. And then I'm going to start my car. Now, one point I should make is that on these Chrysler cars, this car has a semi-automatic M6 transmission, and it shifts automatically. When you take your foot off the throttle, it'll downshift or upshift, whatever it needs to do. Upshift, I guess it would be. You can take your foot off the throttle. But it needs to see idle. When the engine idles down, you take your foot off the gas pedal, and the engine goes down to idle. That allows the load to come off the pinion gear, off the input gear in the transmission. And that takes a load off that pinion gear, and it allows the gears to shift from high to low range. Now, if you start screwing around with your air-fuel mixture screw like I'm about to do here, after you're done, you need to reset your idle, your engine idle. It needs to be, the engine idle needs to be around, I think it's 550 or so is the spec. So you need an RPM gauge. After you set your air-fuel mixture screw, you're going to set your engine idle back down to around 550 RPM. And then your transmission is going to be able to shift properly. If you don't reset the idle, and the idle is now changed and it's higher than it was before, you're going to find it's going to be a delayed shift. The transmission's not going to want to shift. It's waiting for the load on the engine to come off the pinion gear. So it's got to idle down. And if your idle set too high, you can't shift quick enough. It's going to be a very slow shift. So there's a little trick for you guys. If you have an old M6 tranny and you're setting your carburetor up, your idle's got to be set right. Alright, I featured this tool before in my other videos. I love this tool. This is a snap-on dwell meter, and it's also a tachometer. Simple connections, positive and negative, and a yellow boot here wire that goes to your coil. Positive ground, of course, so red is going to go to ground, black to the negative battery cable, and yellow to my coil. Love this tool. This is going to show me my engine RPM after I screw around with my idle air mixture screw. I've got to make sure my engine RPM is correct. I love this tool. I highly recommend you get a dwell meter, a quality one. When you're rolling a vintage car, man, this removes so much doubt and gives you the confidence you need to make sure your car's running properly. Love it. Check out that vacuum. Steady. That is awesome. That's like, what is that, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and a half or so, almost 20 inches of mercury. That is steady. That's a nice steady needle. My car is warmed up a bit here, so I'm sitting at idle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my idle air mixture screw. It's right here at the base of my carburetor. You can use the screwdriver, or you can do it by hand here. On this particular car, I can do that. Sorry about the noise in the background. That's my carbon monoxide detector going off. Maybe I'll throw it outside. I know that there's carbon monoxide going on. I'm at 110 now. Like I said, the garage doors are all open. And I got a breezeway flowing through here. But these old girls put out a fair bit of carbon monoxide. So watch what's going to happen here when I adjust the air-fuel mixture screw. So as I screw it in, the further I screw it in, it's going to start to falter, and the vacuum gauge is going to drop and go down. I'm going to have less vacuum. Then I'm going to back it out again. You're going to see the vacuum gauge come back out. If I keep backing it out too far, it's actually going to drop again. So you got to find a happy medium. You got to find the sweet spot right in between where it remains steady and it's not dropping. So here I go. Now I'm backing it out. I'm twisting it. Look at, see the vacuum dropping? I'm going to go back in. And the vacuum come back up. Now I'm going to pass the point where I was before. I'm going to go back in even more and watch what's going to happen. You're going to lose vacuum. The engine will probably stall. Oh, there, see? I'm backing it out again. Too far, it's dropping. I'm going back in again. I'm just twisting it right here. So you want to find that sweet spot. You want to see that gauge steady. Put your idle screw in and out like I just did there. Find the happy spot. And then you know you've got your air fuel mixture screws set properly for this engine. Now my vacuum gauge is hooked up, as I said, to that port there. If I pull that out right now, it's going to stall. The engine's going to stall. Likely. Let's see what happens. I know it's going to. So I'm plugging it with my finger here. I let it go. Okay. So there's another clue. If you got an old car you bought and you're trying to figure out what the heck's wrong with it, it's not running right, look for vacuum leaks. Forgot to check my RPM. Maybe I'll do that in a second. But I know it's good. I said it before. So I'm happy with my air fuel mixture screw. While I'm here, I set my dwell meter. I'm currently 6-cylinder range is on the bottom here. I'm currently sitting in a 38-degree dwell, 37, 38, and that's exactly where the spec manual says it should be, 38 degrees. I'm really happy with that. Car's purring nicely. Engine idle RPM, for some reason, my gauge isn't, tonight it's acting up. I'm not sure why. If I click the RPM button, it's dropping down there, and that's not accurate. Out is 1,000 RPM, in is 5,000, so I go out. It's not reading right for some reason. Anyways, my dwell is more important to me. My idle is maybe set just it does seem a little bit low to me, but it's idling nicely. It's extremely quiet. So I'm gonna probably just leave it there and enjoy my car as it is. It shifts well. I've got my RPM gauge there set with the lead on the coil there, as you can see. Hooked up to the battery. For some reason I'm not getting a good reading tonight. Oh well, I'm not worried about it. It's worked before, so I don't know what's going on. Anyways, I'm going to take my vacuum gauge plug out and put in the old one again, and then we're off cruising again. Pretty happy. So I'm hoping this is helpful to you folks and keeping your old Mopars on the road. All right, so let's review, students. What did we learn today? We learned that we want to have a clamp style multimeter so you can measure amperage. We learned that old Chryslers and any old flathead Mopar is an awesome car. We know that anyways. If you're watching this, you probably own one. And I don't know if you're as near and dear to your cars as I am, but I love these old cars. We learned how to use a vacuum gauge to set the air fuel mixture screw. We just quickly touched on a dwell meter. Dwell meters are awesome. Go get one. If you have a vintage car with points, go get a dwell meter. Love it. My RPM gauge is acting up, but I'll get to the bottom of that. What else did we learn? Generator output. The clamp meter. Get one. 50, 60 bucks Canadian, so call it 45, 50 American. Totally worth it. Go get one. Get a dwell meter. Or get the clamp meter. The clamp style. It's got to read DC amps. There's many out there, and some of them do not read direct current amperage. You need one that measures DC amps. Make sure, look that up. My 38 Plymouth is apart, and I'm waiting for parts to come in for the engine, so I'm going to tinker on my Chrysler in the meantime, I guess, and get myself through the winter. Oh, carbon monoxide. That's another thing we learned. I recommend a carbon monoxide detector in your garage. I do have one plugged in, you've seen it. I generally open my garage doors, especially when these engines are cold and they're not hot. They're really spewing out carbon monoxide. It's intense. I didn't know how bad it was until I had this meter. And it doesn't take long and the meter's going off, the alarm's going off. Because these old cars, man, they're just, they're not that efficient and clean burning. There's smog contributors for sure. Get a carbon monoxide detector, keep your garage doors open, or you can get a pipe, like a dryer vent pipe. The hose, dryer vent hose, slide it over your exhaust pipe, put it outside the door. That would make a big difference. That's a good thing to have. So, a couple safety points there. Hope that helped you guys out. Keep these old Chryslers on the road, these old Plymouths, these old Mopars. Whether it's a Plymouth, DeSoto, Dodge, Chrysler, Imperial, Crown Imperial. I love them. If you're enjoying the video, subscribe if you like what you see, and see you on the next one.